Welcome. We're glad for this time together. I'm Ron Frederick. I am a clinical psychologist. I live in Los Angeles, California, and have a practice here. And my work for as long as I've been practicing focuses on the power of emotional and relational healing. And I've written 2 books. The primary focus of both of them is about developing emotional mindfulness and how emotional mindfulness is really key to our having the lives and the relationships that we would really like to have. And we'll be talking about that some today. So welcome, and I'm joined here by my partner and sister in our talk with you today, Jackie Frederick-Berner.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. It's so good to see everyone. I'm coming at you from the other side of the country in Rye, New York, just about 20 miles outside of New York City. And I am a mindfulness meditation instructor, and I teach classes and workshops that help people bring mindfulness approaches into their lives, from simple things that can be done in the moment to ways to make a meditation practice part of your daily routine. And I'm really happy to be here with you today. Mindfulness meditation has really helped me in so many parts of my life, especially getting in touch with my emotions and also during challenging times. So I'm really grateful to be sharing it with you today.
Great. So we're going to jump in and to just tell you how we have this structured. I'm going to talk for a little bit about what's going on and things that we can think about. And then I'm going to turn it over to Jackie, who's going to lead us through a meditation focused on the things we'd like to share with you today and impart. And then I will talk a little bit more, and we'll leave some time, hopefully, if there are any questions that people would like to ask or observations that you'd like to share. So we all understand that we are going through a very, very challenging time in our lives right now in the world. And it can't be understated or underestimated just how much we're all impacted in a variety of ways by what's happening right now. Many different feelings are stirred. How could they not be when we're facing what we're facing? Anxiety, fear, grief, sadness, anger, all different feelings, a range of feelings, and it's all so normal given what we're contending with. But being present to our emotional experience can be challenging, particularly challenging during times such as this. But it can be challenging for us in general. And, what do we do then when feelings start to stir inside of us and make us feel uncomfortable? We tend to do things to, not even knowingly, do things to try and make the discomfort go away. So we may be inclined to distract ourselves, get online, surf the net, or, if we're able to work, throw ourselves into our work, or focus on worries, perhaps, that can consume us. And sometimes these are ways in which we're actually trying to cope with the discomfort that we feel by the feelings that are emerging for us. Unfortunately, we think we're doing something or unknowingly doing something that we think is going to provide us with relief. and it really doesn't. All the things that we do to avoid our feelings actually is what keep them hanging around. Last time we focused specifically on anxiety, and that's sort of the general theme for our offerings and what we're sharing with you. And what we talked about last time, if you were here with us, is that it's really very normal to feel anxious during this time, and a time of uncertainty, and a time where we have fear about what can happen to us, can happen to our loved ones, what's happening in the world, and whatnot. And so, in being able to be with our anxiety and allow for it, name it, identify it, is part of what helps us be able to move through it. But anxiety also can be sort of a top layer of our experience. Oftentimes, it's telling us that we're having feelings on a deeper level, feelings that need our attention. So the anxiety shows up sort of like a guidepost or a sign that's telling us, I'm feeling something. I'm feeling something that if I could be with it, I could help myself get to a better place. But when we feel the anxiety, it actually makes us want to move away, and we don't even get at what the deeper story may be. You may wonder, why is it that we feel anxious? Or maybe you identify completely right away. Many of us feel anxiety around our emotional experience for different reasons. But a big reason stems from our early experience in life. An early experience in life where certain feelings felt threatening to experience, felt threatening to our important relationships with our caregivers. And we learned to avoid or to suppress or mask certain feelings. This is all stuff that happened without us even knowing about it. But what happens is that we have a learned association now that certain feelings or being with our feelings is actually a threatening experience. And that's what's coming up in the anxiety. It's sort of a cue that's telling us, oh, we're in danger land, when actually we're not. It may have felt dangerous in the past, but it's not dangerous anymore. So our work then is to be able to move through our anxiety or hear it as a cue and then drop down inside of ourselves to be present with our emotional experience. What we're learning to do, or what we're trying to do, is learn a different way, a healthy way of being with our emotions. Because you see, our emotions really are a wired-in process. They've been there throughout the course of time to help us to survive. And not only to help us to survive, but to help us to flourish. So we actually need to and benefit from when we're able to, in a regulated way, be with our emotional experience, move through it, listen to the cues, the information that it's imparting for us, and then use our emotions to move forward in life in a better way. So what we need to do is learn how to be mindful of what's happening for us emotionally, and to be present with it. That's sort of the beginning of our process, but it's the main piece of our process. So now during this time, like I said, there's a host of feelings that are coming up. And what might show up for us is anxiety, but it's actually, like I said, telling us there's something more. And I know from my own experience that I've had a number of different feelings. And even after doing this work that I've done for so many years and practicing and reminding myself to practice what I help other people do, I learned or discovered when I started to give myself some space that I had a whole bunch of grief that was coming up for me. And grief for so many different things. And we can have the most obvious when it comes to someone being sick or losing someone, losses, but losses of a life that we were living, losses of dreams that we had, things we thought we were going to be able to do. All of us are experiencing them. And the loss of being able to just walk outside and not be worried about what's going to happen. So, and that's hard to be with, but that is actually what's happening for us now. And when we can be present, when I could be present to my grief, it doesn't go away completely because the situation continues, but it starts to lighten a bit, and I have room for other experiences as well. So that's all about bringing emotional mindfulness to our experience. So we're using mindfulness with a particular focus on our emotions. And in my books, I talk about 4 steps to growing emotional mindfulness. And it starts with awareness, growing our awareness, recognizing and naming what's happening for us. Step 2, dropping in or stop, dropping and staying with our emotional experience. Moving with it, allowing it to move through us. Then step 4, reflecting on our experience. Step 3, and then step 4 is mindfully relating. We're going to focus on the early part of those steps. And that's what Jackie's going to help us do now.
Thanks, Ron. Thanks for sharing what you're going through. I think it helps. I know it helps me to hear it, to know that, you know, to give me a clue as to what I'm going through. Because as you said, even in the best of times, it's sometimes hard to figure out what it is we're feeling. But the really valuable thing about meditation is it helps us be in our bodies. And there's a wisdom and an awareness that's already present in our bodies when it comes to experiencing emotions. Just think about the way we describe emotions that we're experiencing and how they relate to our bodies. We are heavy-hearted or broken-hearted, or we have a gut feeling, or we have butterflies in our stomach, a lump in our throat, a weight on our shoulders. So meditation can really help us identify and make sense of what's going on for us emotionally, because it helps us hone in to these clues that our bodies are always giving us. So I'm going to take you through an emotional mindfulness meditation that is going to help you kind of become an emotion detector, an emotion detector, not a motion detector of sorts. So I'm going to invite you to get comfortable in your seat. If you like, you can close your eyes and take a few deep breaths at your own pace. Just give yourself a moment to do that. And after you've had a good few deep breaths in and out, just let your breath return to its own natural rhythm. And kind of using your breath as an anchor, a way to balance yourself. Just bring your attention to your body sitting here. Putting everything aside for the moment. Thoughts, distractions. to experience the sensations of your body. Just notice how it feels right now to embody your body. And what's present in your body as a whole? Can you kind of pick up on an energetic quality within you? It may be subtle, but what's there? Does it have a particular speed? Does it have a weight to it, a heaviness or a lightness? A particular sensation? You're not trying to change anything. You're just noticing what's there. And now that you have this felt sense of your body as a whole, let's go through your body, just area by area. So bring your attention to your head. And then slowly scan from the top of your head to the bottom, just noticing the areas that feel comfortable and the ones that feel maybe uncomfortable. You know, maybe a feeling of constriction, pain, any sensation of unease. Just gently bring your awareness there. Just connecting without trying to change it. What's in your forehead, your temples, eyes, your cheeks, your jaw. And then continuing on to your neck and your throat, bringing a sense of awareness and curiosity. What's comfortable and what's not. And maybe thoughts will come in, and that's okay. Just move your mind away from those thoughts back to your body as you continue to scan down, scanning your shoulders, noticing what's going on in your chest, your upper back, just seeing if you encounter spots of ease or unease. And letting your attention travel down your arms, all the way down to your hands, the tips of your fingers. Just picking up what's there as you move your awareness through those places. Bringing your attention to your belly. Your lower back. Your pelvis. Your hips. Your buttocks. All the way down through your legs. And finally resting with your feet. And then touch in again with the rhythm of your breath. Just watching it go in. And watching it go out. And now I'd like to invite you to return to a sensation or a general area in your body where you felt a particular constriction or unease. And maybe you can just go to that place in your body that habitually feels uncomfortable when you're stressed out. Or if nothing stands out for you, just bring your attention to your heart area. And once you've moved your awareness to that spot, just notice, just recognize what's there. How does it feel? What is the quality of that sensation? Is it a tightness, a heaviness, a tingling, a fluttering? Just give it some space so you can notice and recognize what's there. And can you name the emotional experience that's part of that sensation? Does it feel like an emotion to you? Like this is sadness, or fear, possibly anger, guilt, shame. And if you're having trouble defining the emotion, that's okay. Just stay with the sensation. And notice if maybe you're trying to get away from that sensation, and can you just in this moment stop yourself from doing that? And instead just drop into it, letting go of any storyline you're telling yourself about it, just connecting to what's going on right there without trying to change it or fix it. Can you just stay with your emotional experience? And give it the space to be seen and heard without judging it in any way. Just giving it some breathing room so it can take its natural course. And now that you've given it some room, can you pause and reflect with an attitude of care and kindness on what maybe this sensation is telling you about yourself? About what's going on for you? Can you give this vulnerable place maybe some understanding and compassion? Just open up your heart to it. Just to kind of find out what it needs. What you need. And maybe offer some reassurance that whatever it needs is completely okay, is valid. And then bring your attention back to your breath as you sit here. And when you're ready, you can open your eyes. And slowly take in your surroundings. So this practice that we just did, where we kind of dive deep into our bodies and unearth those physical sensations, that really helps us to recognize, if we're able to stay with that feeling, recognize and identify those emotions. And when we practice this in, during an exercise like this, we become familiar with how our emotions manifest inside our body. So when we're going about our lives and we're feeling those feelings, we can say to ourselves, there's anxiety, and underneath that, I think it's because I'm afraid. And just give ourselves the space to feel. So Ron is going to talk a little bit more about how we do that. And once we know what we're feeling, what can we do with those feelings?
Thanks, Jackie. You mentioned giving space, creating space, making room. And I personally, part of my experience in participating in the exercise, the meditation, I feel this sense of gratitude to have the space. And I mean, really, it's something we can give ourselves. The question is, do we give ourselves the space? And it's when we give ourselves the space that we can connect more deeply with ourselves and ultimately connect more deeply with others. So it's feeling that in my body, and with that comes a sense of spaciousness, and for me, a sense of coming home. And that's what we're working to do by learning to be present with ourselves and to give what's inside of us enough space, enough room, because that's really what it needs. Now, you may have had a similar experience, or you may have had a different experience. I really want to say that when I first started to go inside and listen to what was going on for me was when a therapist was encouraging me to do that. That was in my early 30s. So I became aware just how difficult it was for me to be present with myself. I thought that I was an emotionally present person, but I learned actually that I had a lot of anxiety around my feelings. And I understand that now in retrospect because that was a long time ago. But I didn't have a sense of it then. When I first went inside, and I've written about this before, I really had this experience like I had landed on the moon. So, you know, those photographs where you see the astronauts on the moon and there you see a little bit of the terrain and then it just drops off into space. I really felt like I was in alien territory, not exaggerating. But what happened over time, the more I made space and had to make space when I was sitting across from my therapist, and that's what I was there to do, slowly over time, I started to connect and notice things that connect with and notice things that were happening in myself. And over time, emotions started to show up, and they could show up in big ways, but often they were showing up in very subtle ways. And this is why it's so important that we create space, because it may not always be obvious. And but if we do create some space and we approach it with curiosity rather than judgment, we start to notice things. So just to give you a little bit of help, you know, what sort of things are we talking about? Jackie mentioned the body, and that's really where we feel our feelings. I'd like to say if we didn't have a body, we wouldn't have feelings. Where would you feel them? So some of these may be apparent to you, others not. But for instance, with sadness, our eyes can grow heavy, and we notice maybe our eyes get teary. Jackie mentioned a lump in our throat. That's a very common physical manifestation that we feel a constriction, perhaps, in our throat. That's the feeling showing up. An achy or heavy sensation in our chest. I mentioned to you becoming more aware of the fact that I was feeling profound grief and experience that as a heaviness inside of me that when I stay present to it can also give way to tears. Anger, we think of anger as being very strong, and oftentimes we think of the behavior that looks or we label as anger, but the physical sensations that come with anger, we might notice tension in our jaw. May not be strong, just a little. We might notice that our hands start to tingle or our arms feel activated. This is evolutionarily how we are meant to experience the know of anger. You might feel heat inside of ourselves. Our heartbeat might speed up. Sense of pressure growing inside. Fear, our hands may get cold. Our breathing may quicken. We may feel an agitation in our legs. You know, the sensation that you want to move. Again, that's how we're wired. If we're afraid of something, our body is wired to respond in an adaptive way. Get away from that which is dangerous. And with guilt, with shame, we feel the impulse to withdraw. We may feel a heaviness or decreased energy. And in the case of shame, it can feel sickening in some ways. They're all indications that we're closer to our feelings. And what we need to do is to give it room And as you were doing in the meditation, noticing what you're feeling and sensing into your experience. So what we call participatory observation. You're both participating in it and allowing for it to happen and feeling those feelings, and you're also noticing it and getting curious about it. And in this way, it's a holistic way that we're making use of our whole brain, that we can feel and we can also observe. And as we do that and we go into our feelings and then we shift back and forth between feeling and observing, we're helping to regulate that experience. And we're helping it to become integrated and to have it move through us. And then we can reflect on it. So for instance, I reflect on this heaviness that I'm feeling inside of me. The tears come up. This Saturday or Sunday, someone had posted something on Facebook, a choral arrangement, and that I started to listen to it. And oftentimes music can have this effect. Just a wellspring of emotion came up for me. And I realized just how close the sorrow that I was feeling to the surface it had been. And I allowed it to come. And then there's a moment of reflection, which went something like, wow, this is really impacting us. Wow, this is really big, what we're going through. Wow, I'm really feeling this. I'm feeling impacted by this. I feel such sadness. I feel such sorrow. And that's not the only feeling that I feel too. I have other feelings as well. Anger for different reasons, and fear at times as well. It can be a jumble, it can be a mix. The more that we drop inside and give it room, it starts to disentangle. The main thing that we can do is to just accept. We practice, acceptance is a term in mindfulness. It's really about coming to our experience and without judgment and without criticism or questioning or why should I feel this, or other people have it worse, or we all do these things. But our feelings, they don't really respond to that, and we don't really have a choice. The choice that we don't have a choice about whether we feel or not. Well, we do by not feeling it, but we don't choose the feelings. They come up innately. And so if we can accept them, we can allow them to arrive, then they're going to be able to move through us if we honor them, and they can take us to another place. It may feel hard for you to be present to your feelings, so I want to encourage you to breathe, and to breathe into those spaces where it may feel activated, to imagine more space around the emotional experience inside of you. If it feels too intense, you might try and back up a little bit from your experience. Focus then again on your breathing for a while, and then gently incline toward the feeling again. And in this way, we're helping to regulate it. Ultimately, what we want to do is have a sense of a wave moving through us. Now, that's just the emotion, that's the emotional experience. It moves through us. We can have many waves. But in the moment, we're looking for a sense of getting to another place. And then what we find with our emotions, and we'll talk about it at another time, is that oftentimes they prompt us to share them, to want to share them. Maybe we're needing to express our anger to someone and let them know what had happened. Maybe we're needing to share our sadness because we're seeking comfort or reassurance. So when we reflect on our feelings, we can listen to what they're telling us about how we're feeling, but we can also listen to what they're telling us about what we need or what we may want. And then that may pose a challenge because it means allowing ourselves to be vulnerable and sharing it with another person. I invite you to just notice that. And in this time, we need each other more than anything. So taking the risk, perhaps, to be vulnerable and share what's inside of you can ultimately go a long way to addressing your feelings, but also to cultivating a sense of connection. which is so important to our well-being right now. So there's much more we can say, and we're planning to come back and do that, but we want to just leave a few minutes here. If you have any questions or comments in the 5 minutes that we have left, unmute yourself. It's a button in the lower left-hand corner, and we're happy to hear from you. It doesn't have to be a question. You may just have an observation, or maybe you just want to be quiet. That's totally fine as well. We do have a list of questions. Hi.
Was someone speaking?
I thought I heard someone. Do you want to say something?
Well, I was going to say something, but then I thought I heard someone else. The only thing I want to say is that I really appreciate it. There are different approaches to this, but some people, and I've even heard some Buddhists do this, characterize certain feelings as negative feelings, which I don't subscribe to. But I want to just say I appreciate that you at least included and anger and rage are definitely two of the ones that some people think of as, and I just appreciate the idea of that all feelings have a place, and that it isn't some kind of hierarchical or dualistic scheme that we need to bring to bear.
I really appreciate you pointing that out, and that's true. You know, the language is to make a distinction. It's probably, we might be better off saying unpleasant and pleasant emotions rather than negative, or, and that may not even work, you know, because sometimes people have a hard time with joy or happiness and it doesn't feel pleasant. But it's true, all feelings, they're not positive or negative. Well, they are actually all positive. They're meant to be helpful to us, are healthy, constructive emotions. I focused on the ones that I felt, you know, might be coming up for us right now, and they're ones that people struggle with. But, you know, joy and love, you know, are all feelings, and they're all part of the mix. So we want to, every feeling has a message to impart and an energy impart and to an impulse to impart that, again, like I said, is there to be helpful to us. So we want to listen to all of them. All right, well, we really appreciate everyone showing up today. We appreciate having this time together to make some room and a sense of connection just in the being. And as we look out at you, we hope that you feel us with you, and a gentle encouragement to listen to yourself. Can practice meditation, and we can practice throughout our day just turning inward and being a friend to ourselves and to our emotional experience. Want to say something, Jackie?
I echo that. And it's important to give yourself the time, even if it's just a little space in between, you know, doing what you have to do for work and taking care of your family. You know, we're under, I think all of us are kind of operating in an area of chronic stress, especially because of what we're facing. So it can be hard to maybe get off that treadmill of survival, but we can really do ourselves such good. And I am saying this to myself as well. I need to heed this advice, that if we just take a moment and touch in with our bodies, feel our feet on the ground, connect with our breath. Just see if there's anything that our bodies are telling us, anything that we need. We just need to be there, be here for ourselves.
Ron?
Yes.
I wanted to add to that when Jackie mentioned survival. One of the things that I'm finding helpful as a therapist, as I listen to the pain of other people, is to help them understand that however they're coping with their emotions, are often they're either earlier or current survival skills, even if they look horrendous to us. Sometimes people curl up in a ball or need to cry or need to withdraw. And it may reflect some of the earlier survival skills. And though sometimes it's possible to look at it as, oh my God, they're falling apart, they're collapsing. And I've had that with a couple of patients. And to really be with them in the very worst stage, the most painful stage, I think is a challenge for us as therapists, for me as a therapist, to be able to tolerate that and be there. But when I think of it as a survival skill, it's easier for me to ride it out with them and then be with them as they come out of it.
Yeah, Fred Lee, thanks for sharing that. And we do what we do in order to survive, and we can continue to cultivate and recognize when we're in overdrive and need to do other things to take care of ourselves. So we're going to say goodbye to you now, and we look forward to seeing you again. We wish you all well.
Thank you.
Take
Same
care.
to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So much.
Good to see everyone.